You know, I was just thinking about that in the studio before I came down here, and I think the first time I met Sid was at a Saturday morning.
Picture this. A smoke-filled studio. Roger Waters sits still, arms crossed, a storm brewing behind his eyes. He's not mixing tracks. He's mixing rage. 5 bands. 5 names he can't stand. Not just petty dislike, full-on, bone-deep disdain. When Roger Waters hates something, it echoes. Roger Waters built his name on rebellion. His music wasn't safe, it screamed. So when he calls someone out, he means it. These are 5 bands he believes betrayed what rock was meant to be, loud, raw, and real. The first? The one that's haunted his shadow for decades. U2. It started with admiration. It ended in disgust. In the early 18s, U2 seemed like the natural successors to Pink Floyd's political thunder. Big themes, bigger stages, stadiums filled with people hungry for meaning. But to Waters, it was all posturing. He saw Bono's speeches as empty theatrics, sermons without sacrifice. The music, he claimed, was overproduced, sanitized, safe. What infuriated him most? The praise. Critics hailing U2 as the conscience of rock, fans comparing the Joshua Tree to the Wall. To Waters, it was blasphemy. He saw the Wall as a guttural scream, a self-dissection, a cry from the void. The Joshua Tree? A commercial anthem parade dressed in sincerity. He didn't see conscience. He saw ego, wrapped in designer sunglasses, riding private jets from one charity gala to the next. The tipping point came during a show in London. Waters attended, out of curiosity. But midway through the set, after yet another grandstand sermon from Bono about saving the world, he stood up, shook his head, and walked out. "It's all smoke and no fire," he muttered on the way out. What started as admiration curdled into contempt. Because for Waters, rock wasn't supposed to make you feel good about doing nothing. It was supposed to make you feel uncomfortable enough to act. The next band, the legends who in his eyes lost their soul to stadiums. The Rolling Stones. They were once rebels, then they became a brand. Waters admired them in the 16s. Who didn't? They had swagger, soul, and danger in their riffs. They made chaos sound cool. But as time marched on, something shifted. The edge dulled. The tours grew massive. The message got lost somewhere between million-dollar lighting rigs and designer merchandise. To Waters, the Stones stopped challenging the world and started cashing in on it. The raw blues that once gave them authenticity turned into a well-rehearsed routine.
I don't remember Baby Lemonade.
Okay.
You know, for me, that period in a way was the kind of, you know, the gem in...
Dressed in nostalgia and commercial polish. He saw them as caricatures of their former selves. Rock stars trading grit for glitz, protest for profit. It wasn't personal, it was principle. He believed they had the power to push boundaries, but instead, they sold comfort. Their late career albums, in his eyes, felt like empty echoes of past glory. The friction wasn't just philosophical, it was real. Backstage at a European festival in the 19s, Waters reportedly clashed with members of the Stones crew over performance order and sound checks. Tensions escalated when one of the Stones' tour managers dismissed Waters as too political for the crowd. The slight ha-ho stuck with him. From that moment, the distance grew colder. Invitations were ignored. Backhanded remarks circled in interviews. Though the two camps never exchanged blows publicly, those in the industry knew there was bad blood behind those smiles. So when asked if he'd ever share a stage with them, the answer was instant. He didn't want to be part of a circus. He wanted a revolution. Then came the band he called the soundtrack to shopping malls. Coldplay. Too clean, too careful, too safe. To Roger Waters, Coldplay was everything he believed rock shouldn't be. Over-sanitized, emotionally lukewarm, stripped of danger, music with no bite. He saw their sound as packaging, not purpose. He never hid his contempt for pop rock, made to blend into elevators and tech company ads. Coldplay, with their pastel visuals, shimmering optimism, and stadium-sized niceness, became his prime target. To him, they were the musical equivalent of a soft blanket during a fire. What infuriated him wasn't their popularity, it was their emptiness. Songs built for mass sing-alongs but hollow at the core. Their choruses aimed for unity, but Waters heard apathy underneath. No edge, no urgency. Just feel-good noise for people too exhausted to care. And while the world burned, conflict, corruption, collapse, Coldplay floated above it all, never naming names, never challenging the chaos. To Waters, that wasn't neutrality, it was escapism, a betrayal of what music was born to do: provoke, disrupt, reflect. In Coldplay, he didn't see soul. He saw strategy. Art scrubbed clean for safe consumption. For him, their songs weren't anthems. They were lullabies for a distracted age. He didn't just reject their music. He rejected the silence it encouraged. The next band, the ones who he claims butchered legacy rock? Muse. To Waters, Muse was a cautionary tale, a band with all the tools, but none of the truth. Their shows dazzled with light and noise, but to him it was noise without soul. He saw their image-heavy style as a distraction from the fact that their songs lacked real substance. Their lyrics danced around rebellion but never fully committed. It felt safe, calculated. He accused them of mimicking Pink Floyd's grandeur. Big soundscapes, dramatic crescendos, brooding themes, but missing the raw emotion, the anguish, the blood that had always fueled his own work. For Waters, rebellion wasn't a mood. It was a scar. Behind the scenes, there was tension too. During a charity event where both were scheduled to perform, Waters reportedly questioned why Muse had been given the headlining slot. He felt their message was shallow and didn't deserve the spotlight reserved for artists with real things to say. Their teams never clashed publicly, but those in the industry whispered about Waters' irritation. Muse's subtle nods to Floyd-style production without Floyd-level depth felt to him like theft without understanding, a tribute without reverence. Waters didn't mind being admired, but imitation without insight, that was unforgivable. To him, Muse symbolized a generation more interested in looking like revolutionaries than sounding like them. And the final band, the one that pushed him from indifference to fury, Imagine Dragons. When asked about them in an interview, Waters laughed, not kindly. "Are we really calling this rock?" he said, raising an eyebrow like he'd just been insulted by the question. To him, Imagine Dragons were the musical equivalent of fast food, packaged, predictable, and mass-produced for maximum palatability. They were the embodiment of commercialized rebellion. Anthemic choruses without conflict, loud songs with nothing to say, the kind of music, he argued, that fills arenas but empties meaning. He saw them not as a band, but as a brand, a product wrapped in guitars and neon, in guitar form tailored for algorithms and halftime shows. Waters, who had once written music that railed against war, surveillance, and madness, saw in Imagine Dragons a band that stood for nothing and still managed to be everywhere. It wasn't just that they lacked substance, it was that they pretended to have it. "There's nothing worse," he once said, "than packaging noise as revolution." He didn't just dislike them, he disdained what they represented. The erosion of message in favor of marketability, the triumph of style over soul. In a world on fire, their music to him sounded like denial, with a drum machine. Roger Waters has always demanded more from music. More courage, more truth, more fire. For him, music wasn't background noise, it was a weapon, a cry, a wound set to rhythm. It wasn't about entertainment, it was about confrontation. These 5 bands, to him, they fell short. Not because they weren't talented, but because they didn't dare enough, didn't bleed enough. They polished their sound, softened their edge, and played it safe. To Waters, that was the ultimate betrayal. Not of genre, but of purpose. He remembered the days when a lyric could get you banned, when an album sleeve sparked debate in Parliament, when rock music wasn't just art, it was resistance. That's what he gave to the world. That's what he expects in return. Waters didn't hate for headlines. He hated because he cared, because he believed that music should scream when the world whispered, that art should feel like a punch, not a pat, that it should turn stages into battlegrounds, not billboards. He didn't want popularity. He wanted impact. He didn't want fans. He wanted fighters. He wanted soundtracks for marches, not shopping malls. Lyrics that challenged authority, not flirted with algorithms. And when he listens today, he's not searching for comfort. He's searching for rebellion, for truth that bites, for music that feels like setting off an alarm in a sleeping world. Most of what he hears just isn't loud enough, not in message, not in meaning, not in guts. To him, the industry got too quiet when the world needed volume. Because to Roger Waters, if your music doesn't challenge something, it might as well say nothing at all.